This is Resident 104.4 FM. Flipping marvellous, as always. Of course, my name's Nick Hennegan, and welcome once again to Literary London, where we look at things kind of literary and London-y, sort of. In fact, we're going to be quite local for a change this time, after Wales and America, of the last two shows, because I'm very pleased to welcome Catharine Wippell. Hello, Catharine.
Hello, Nick. Thank you for having me.
Well, no, thank you very much for coming on. And of course, as always, we're on bohemianbritain.com. And if you want to see us and see the fact I've just realised I've got a spot on the end of my nose, there you go. Then do please have a look at bohemianbritain.com. And also the general notice, of course, if you'd like to get in touch, if there's anything you've done, you can email me. The new email address is Nick, Nick, at bohemianbritain.com. Nick at bohemianbritain.com. Although the old one, radio at mavericktheatre.co.uk, also works. Hey, I'm everywhere, me. Radio at mavericktheatre.co.uk. And so now, actually, we've known each other for years. No, we haven't, actually. We met last night at the Union Club, which is a lovely little kind of, I say it's a members club. It is a members club, isn't it? It always sounds a bit posher than it is, though. It's a great place, is the Union Club. And we met last night and started chatting about a brilliant new show. It sounds brilliant. I haven't seen it yet, called Cabaret for the End of the World. And it's been written and performed by Cathy. And it's going to be on, depending on when you're watching this or listening to this, next week at the Bread and Roses Theatre. So just tell us what's it all about, mate, as they say.
Yeah, so Cabaret for the End of the World is a post-apocalyptic solo show with accordion. It follows the story of Montcellier, the last accordionist in the United Kingdom, after a big nuclear bomb hits, after a sort of disastrous climate war between all the nations. And yeah, it's pretty dark, but it's pretty funny at some points as well. I would say it's very satirical as well. And it runs from 3rd to the 7th of June at the Bread and Roses Theatre in Clapham.
Okay, we'll put the address out as well for if anyone wants any further information
Yeah.
towards the end. I mean, so what gave the idea for a post-apocalyptic? I can't even say it now. Yeah, solo show. Where did that notion come from?
So it was a strange one because I didn't start out going, oh, I want to make a post-apocalyptic accordion show. I saved up for an accordion about 3 years ago and got it through a friend who was trying to get rid of one because he knew that he'd restores accordions and he was basically, this one was taking up space, which I didn't realize meant that it's a really massive accordion. It like weighs about 10 kilos. I thought you could just get one size, but turns out mine is a 94 or an 82 bass, I can't remember. And they range from, I mean, you can get literally 10 bass accordions, really tiny ones, to 56 to 82, 94. So I got one of the biggest ones, but it was a good deal. And essentially, in around the same time I got this instrument, there was a massive heat wave in London. My street was actually the hottest street on London, apparently. It was 42 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
And me and my partner had to move, like we had to sleep in the basement because it was so hot. It was just unbearable. And I just thought at the time, God, this is so dystopian. I've lived in London all my life and I never remember it being like this. And so I wrote this sort of weird satirical poem about it. And my good friend Nina, who runs a wonderful horror theatre festival in London called Grimfest, was doing a scratch night. And she said, do you have anything? We're doing a scratch night. And I went, I have a weird little song poem thing because I put the accordion to it. And she went, oh, could you do a bit of a monologue to flesh it out a bit? Because the slots are like 10 minutes. And I went, yeah, okay. And then I sort of came up with this character and then people seemed to like it. And Nina was really encouraging and said, you should make it into a full 60-minute thing. And yeah, here we are.
I've got to ask first of all, why the accordion?
I just think I've always loved the sound of it. Sounds like sort of a whole orchestra in one instrument. And there's something quite haunting about it as well. Any instrument, I think, with bellows is quite almost like a human voice. So I think it fits well in the apocalypse.
Yeah, it's quite good. I mean, I grew up, I mean, Hennegan, Irish surname with Uncle
Yeah.
Joe playing the accordion at every family party
Oh,
we came
cool.
to. And whenever I think of the accordion, for slightly different reasons, I think of that sort of nostalgia as well, almost that the whole,
Yeah, it's sort of
yeah,
timeless, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, a bit like bagpipes, I suppose, talking of it.
Yes, bagpipes. Well, I'm half Scottish, so my family is that sort of side of the bellows
That could be,
instrument. But yeah,
it's you being a Celt, I think.
yes, I
That's
think
right.
so. We have a
That's my
connection
excuse.
to these
Yeah.
things.
And so, and how did you get to this point anyway? So you say you're a London girl originally, are you? A London child?
Yes, I was born in London, and I was always quite a quiet kid. I wanted to do illustration. I wanted to be an illustrator for a long time. And then when I was at school, I made friends with a lovely girl who's still a really good friend of mine, called Sasha, and she made me do this musical theatre course with her.
Oh,
She was
brilliant. Was that
completely
at school?
opposite.
Was it at school
Yeah,
or outside school? Yeah.
yeah. It was no, it was outside school. It was at Sylvia Young,
Ah,
and it was a great course, and it was really fun. And it was just really fun pretending to be someone else who wasn't shy, who wasn't an introvert. And so, yeah, I just sort of got into it from there. And then when I was 17, I got into the National Youth Theatre. And then it's all sort of snowballed.
yes, the circumstance. And was it the performing that you preferred, or was it the writing, or did they both have a similar place?
I started, well, I've been writing for a long time. I wrote really terrible poems when I was like from 13 to 19. And then I was like, oh, this is not good. I tried to write a novel when I was 17. I wrote about 60,000 words of it, but it was about something I completely did not know about. So I don't know why I tried to write that. But then something really clicked when I discovered screenwriting, actually. Because I went to uni in Manchester, and one of the modules you could take was a screenwriting module. And something about the format I found really easy to write. So I work a lot as a sort of screenwriter now, but this is my first playwriting venture. And it's the thing that made the most sense for me in terms of playwriting. Playwriting is really hard. You can't just cut to like you can in a screenplay. I have a huge respect for playwrights.
Yeah, so it's one of the founders of EastEnders wanted to write a novel, and a friend of his said, try screenwriting. It's a lot easier." And
Yeah, no,
I,
it does. It feels easier. It feels, I think, just because you can just be anywhere you like at any one time and show that. Whereas plays, you always need a reason for someone to exit or to enter and all of this.
yeah. Yes, he said, laughing slightly nervously.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
I had a few myself.
Well, you don't necessarily need that, I guess. You could
Just right. Yeah, there's one or two Pinter. I don't know, we won't get into that. So yeah, so you say you've got an involvement with film anyway, and I know you've already tell us about your film journey, as it were.
Yeah, so basically, where did it start? I guess it kind of started during COVID because I was at uni during COVID and I was doing a contemporary performance module at the University of Manchester, which was great. But when COVID hit, we couldn't really do it. So our wonderful supervisor, Andy Smith, who is a performance artist in his own right, he sort of encouraged us to find different ways that we could still perform, not necessarily with an audience or an in-person audience. And I chose to do some video art. So that I shot it, I graded it really badly myself. I edited it terribly on Premiere Pro, but like that was my first sort of figuring out how films work, and it was really interesting. And then I took a short course in filmmaking after that. And that's where I met my partner, Joseph Archer, who we founded a company with because we both come from an activist background as well. So I started a campaign at uni, which got featured on BBC News and the Today Show. It sort of exploded. I was like, oh my God. And then I was also involved in climate activism for quite a long time. Joe comes from a journalist background and a politics background. So we were both sort of involved in activism and we wanted to make stories in the genre sector, so horrors and thrillers, sci-fi, maybe one day if we have the budget. But films like that, which are about a modern day issue. So the company Silicon Gothic, we monsterify modern day issues. We turn the monsters of today, like water pollution, climate change, nuclear warfare, for example, in Cabaret for the End of the World, into these sort of monsters, tangible monsters, because these issues are so huge, we can't really understand them as humans sometimes. And so we aim to sort of raise awareness of these issues in an entertaining but, digestible way as well.
Yes, it's a good way of get well. I mean, the arts have always sort of really questioned the status quo, I suppose. And I mean, the
Yeah.
show that we just did here, Ghost of a Chance, was a ghost story, but really it was about a bloke who's been made redundant and hasn't got
Yeah.
any choices in life because of his background, and it was quite nice that. The reviewers picked up on that, but also, an entertaining story. I mean, that is interesting as well. The whole notion of setting up a film company, that's quite an ambitious thing to do in itself, isn't it, for a lot of people?
Yes, I think we just sort of did it. I think with these things, neither of us went to film school as well. And I think that can be quite freeing in a way when you haven't been told exactly how to do something, because we literally went on company's house and we set it up and we were like, okay, we're doing this now. Which I'm sure, like, there are better ways, well, not better ways, but more traditional ways of setting up a company, which we didn't do. But here I am speaking to you in our new office, so we must be doing something right.
Hooray! Well done.
Yeah.
I hope you've got more room than we have in our office. Anyway, it's a broom.
Well, I don't know. I think we might be the same size, to be honest. This looks quite big because there's nothing on the walls yet.
When did you move? Have you moved in quite recently then?
Literally 2 days ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant. Oh, well done. Oh, that's a great step forward as well, isn't it? It's always a
Yeah.
problem. I mean, the writing from home thing is I tend to write quite a lot in pubs. Obviously,
Yeah.
I have to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because you could
So
be,
you're
you
quite
could
good
be
at cancelling out noise.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
sort of slightly not weird. Well, no, it's because you're actually completely you could be connected when you want to be connected. And then, I mean, sad old bloke in the corner with a computer on a Friday night. That's a I think I get the odd pity or
Oh,
scorn. What's he do? He's obviously got no life. But it is quite I find that quite useful when you, especially if there are more complicated characters. And sure as heck, someone's going to pop up, and you think, oh,
yeah. Yeah,
what's your
that
name?
one.
And so, and how have you found the process of I mean, 'cause the other thing about film is, well, of course, once you've made it, it's there forever. I mean, whereas theatre, of course, changes literally every night, doesn't it? Depending on the audience. So
Yeah.
I guess I suppose there's always, I mean, that's why people sometimes say to me, if we've had a few, fortunately, critically acclaimed theatre shows. And part of the problem, of course, is that you've got to get people together to do them again and again. Whereas I guess once you've made the film, I did a little short film a few years ago, which did rather well at the Edinburgh Film Festival. And that's still with a 12-minute short. That's still kind of with me now, and I've just been told that apparently we're going to send it off to a few film festivals this year to celebrate the 30th year of making it. 30 years, I tell you. The technology's changed quite a bit since then. I wish I was starting now, but anyway, that's for that. So presumably, then the idea of if they're genre films, are you going to decide? I mean, will the story dictate the genre, or the other way around? Do you think?
Ooh. I think they both have their really important parts, sort of genre and story, and one informs the other, and it sort of feeds back in a loop, I think. I think as a writer, I've always gravitated towards horror and thriller because you just get so many characters who are experiencing so much emotion. And it's just really interesting as a writer to be able to explore sort of the limits of that and like push things to the extreme. Um, I
Yeah,
think we were talking about this last night as well, when you write something and people go, "Oh,
yeah, yeah,
why
exactly.
did you think of that?" And I'm like, "I didn't think of that. Like,
Yeah,
I
what
think
kind of
I thought
sicko
of it
came
in
up
the
with that?
play."
Oh, it was
Yeah.
you. That's it.
It's like I don't think about this stuff regularly. It's for the
No,
home.
no, I'm glad you said it. Yeah, again, we goes to chance. One or two people were going, "What? You
Yeah,
did
they're like, "Are
what?"
you okay?"
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned as I was directing it as well, which was quite. I was doubly guilty really, because I created this thing, and then the actors, it was two-hander, but the actors had to execute it. I'm Nick Hennegan. This is Literary London on Resonance 104.4 FM, talking to writer, would you say, producer, director Catharine Wippell, and certainly performer anyway. If you're listening to this in June 2025, we'll give you the details of where you can see Catherine's brand new show. We saw the premiere then, will this be, Catherine?
So I did a preview at the Old Red Lion last year in October with Grimfest, which is run by the lovely Nina Atesh. And yeah, this will be the first run of it. And hopefully I'll be taking it to Edinburgh. We will see. We will see how well this run does, basically.
Yes, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's Edinburgh's very particular. I mean, say you're half Scottish, so if you've got a base it, that makes a massive difference, I think, for the Fringe, because the costs have just got kind of ridiculous. Although, as I mentioned earlier, my first Edinburgh was 1992, and people then were going, "Oh, the Fringe isn't what it used to be." That
Yeah.
was 1992. People are still saying the same now. Although I do, yeah, accommodations got kind of
Yeah.
crazy. I
I
should
know a lot
mention.
of people going up in vans, I think, this year. Yeah.
I was also quite surprised the first year I went, how many, because we were very fortunate. I did this thing called Henry Fifth Line of England. There's a poster behind if you're watching us on bohemianbritain.com, and did it for one night in the Midlands Arts Centre in Birmingham. And a guy literally tapped me on the shoulder afterwards in the bar and said, "That was really rather good. We'd like to take you to the Edinburgh Fringe." I had no idea what Edinburgh Fringe was, but he was with a company called Starward, and they used to manage a comedian called Jasper Carrott and Phil Call and people like that. They were very famous in the 70s. So basically, they arranged everything. We had a lovely flat over the
Amazing.
Meadows. They did all the PR for. I mean, we all tried to help, but we were kind of spoiled. And I was struck by how many companies that we got to know who didn't even manage to survive, because there was this classic thing of get a van and all seven of them would drive up to Edinburgh, and they'd be sleeping in two rooms with these
Yeah.
almost strangers for the duration of the festival. I was quite surprised at how many companies didn't even last the festival because they all fell out. I mean, that's not the normal way, but it happened quite a lot. Because we had a
Yeah,
five
I can
bedroom
imagine
flat.
it's an intense thing to do as well as a performer.
I remember when there was one company, they were actually sleeping in a barn on a dirt floor, sort of 15 miles outside of Edinburgh. And because we got carpet, and I always remember one of the guys going, "Look, can we just come and can we bring our sleeping bags,
Sleep
just
on the
lie on your
carpet.
carpet?" I go, "Yeah." So we had a lot of people stopping over that.
Oh
But it is, I suppose, it's the platform now, I guess, isn't it? With
my
Edinburgh, is
God.
that the notion? And I presume that's why people do it. Uh, and I mean, what's the ambition? Is the film company the ambition? Presumably, you've actually taken some very positive steps, or is the writing? What would your ambition be if you had to put your hand on your heart?
I think exactly 50-50 acting and writing. I love both of them. I can't imagine not doing both of them. I do produce. I'm producing my own show right now. It would be great to have a producer, but I'm getting around to that. And we produce our films at Silicon Gothic, but it does feel like it's whilst I love that as well, and the part of especially bringing lots of people together to create something, I think that's an amazing thing as a producer.
Yes,
I
yes,
think my heart lies with the acting and the writing.
yes. And
Yeah.
I mean, film producing is like, well, actually, is it? I mean, in terms of finding the money as well, and distribution, I think is quite important in film producing, isn't it? Said
Yeah.
who I've not done any films, but I'm
It's
tempted.
funny you were saying earlier about sort of how film has a life in quite a different way that theatre has a life. But I do think in many ways they're quite similar in a weird way, because with film with an indie film you have this whole festival circuit, and then you get distributed either theatrical or streaming or both in an ideal world. But then distributors and streamers take things off eventually, and then sometimes they'll bring them back. I think The Wicker Man just had a sort of anniversary, and they brought it back in a nice 4K restoration. And so it's a funny thing. Like, yes, they're so different in terms of theatre. You get a different show every night, as we were saying, but there is something about, it does return in ways that film does. Even if just like an audience member 10 years later down the line goes, "Oh, I remember that show." is still living on in a performance.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I mean, I saw this was on for 3 weeks at the Tabard Theatre, which is a studio theatre in West
Yeah,
London, and I went to virtually every night, mainly for the audience, because as you say, different audiences every night reacted to the
yeah,
different levels of horror and so. Anyway, yeah, it was an entertainment in itself. Of course, I love the actors as well. I was watching the actors, but it is quite a special thing when yeah, with people do react to what's going on. And also, I wanted to ask, and I hope this isn't particularly sensitive. I think I mentioned as well last night, I was really quite shocked at the Me Too thing when that happened, going back a few years. Not shocked, but the fact that it happened, that movement needed to happen. I always thought theatre actually was sort of better than films, rather arrogantly, and it turns out, of course, there are one or two bad pennies there. I just wondered if you don't mind me asking, how you're finding it as a young woman in the industry generally at the moment.
yeah.
If
I
that's
think
not too, yeah, if that's not too, personal, as it were. I just think if we don't
no,
talk
I
about these
mean
things,
it's
they'll go
not
away,
at
won't
all.
they?
And I'm so happy to talk about these things. I think these things need to be talked about a lot more than they are still. Like even after, well, the Me Too movement is ongoing, but yeah, as a young woman in the industry, I've been in the industry for about 3 or coming up to 4 years now, so not a very long time. And obviously, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. But weirdly, I found that being a young female producer is worse than being a young female actor in these things and it's because I think the Me Too movement was so amazing in what it did, that, we as actors do feel an extra element of protection now. But as a young female producer, when you're navigating a lot of, and in film especially, there is a lot of power play because there's a lot of money floating around, and there's a lot of like, oh, who do I give my money to? And why should I give my money to someone? And sometimes the reasons are not what they should be. And sadly, that is still like a massive truth of it. As a young female producer, people do take advantage of the fact that you need financing for your films, and they think that because of that, they can say things to you or ask you for things which are not okay and which are not professional.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is interesting, and it's a good point about that. I mean, the Me Too thing. Everything that Maverick does, we always read out the equity safe space little declaration before the start
yeah,
of any rehearsal period, and there's always someone else outside involved with the production, but outside the production, if anyone's got any problems, it's either me if I'm producing or if I'm directing. That we've got one of our board members, and that's only you're right, really. I mean, because the elements of respect have always been there, but the function, I suppose, has happened because of the Me Too movement. But yeah, I suppose as a producer, I mean, we do a producing workshop, theatre producing workshop, commercial community thing. And it's very interesting that there's another young theatre producer who said a very similar thing to me a month or so ago,
right.
um,
Yeah.
which is a bit sad, really. But yeah, as you say, I hope you don't mind me asking that, but I do think we need to keep talking about it.
No, we absolutely do. And I think, keep talking about it, yes, of course, in the context of actors, because, historically, female actors have been absolutely just put in the wrong situation, which they did not need to be put in. Um, and there have been horrible consequences of that. But as creatives in general as well, I think we can expand the conversation a lot more into producing, especially directing as well. Like people sometimes feel uncomfortable with what they are directing, and how do you navigate that as a director? I wouldn't know. I'm not actually a director, but I'm sure it would be very complicated.
Yes, well, yeah. So we're talking about
Yeah,
Cathy, which
so,
as a director of a certain age, directing an actor. She was 28 years old. She's absolutely fine, but she helped me through it a little bit. The embarrassing bits, the horror bits that were in the script that I'd written. So, but she was great. So
which
she was
adds a
very,
whole other level.
yeah, it was
Funny.
terrible. So,
Yeah.
and you've already done. So you've got a film that you're kind of working on, which is not. I haven't quite announced it yet, but you've got a couple of films in the can or distributed already, haven't you? Was it? Did you say?
So
Yeah.
we have
Or
a
at
few
least one.
shorts we've made, which are sort of past their life now, but are with us in this digital space. And then we've got a big slate of feature films now we want to make as a company. We've just finished one, which is yet to be announced, so that's very exciting. But we currently have one in development called Black Samphire, which does illustrate quite well what the company does. It's a folk horror about water pollution. We're very lucky to have Stephen Fry attached in a voiceover role and as an executive producer. He's been an amazing supporter of the project. We've got BAFTA winner Cathy Tyson on board. We're working with amazing co-producers, Candid Broads Productions, and an amazing director, Kat White. So it will be her debut. And she's also from an activist background. She's done a lot of open water swimming. And really unusually for a horror film, we're also working with a charity called River Action UK. And they've been amazing. They supported us on the short proof of concept for the film, which was fantastic. And yeah, they're helping us out with the horror film, which is quite unusual, but it's kind of the way we like to work at Silicon Gothic. We like to do things a bit differently. We like to work with a third sector organization who can help us maximize, what we're trying to say with the film because they are so issue driven. And so, yes, we're making a horror film and we're in development for a horror film, but other activities we've done in that sort of development pre-production stage have been, for example, we organised a big river clean on the River Thames called Hallow Clean for Halloween. So everyone had to dress up as monsters and come and clean up the horrors of the plastic pollution on the Thames. And what else did we do? We were at the March for Clean Water. So that was great. And me and Ishtar, one of the lead actress, Ishtar Curry Wilson, who's a wonderful upcoming actor who's been in The First Omen and Lockwood and Co. Me and her did dip a day with Surfers Against Sewage. So we cold water dipped every single day in October in partnership with them to raise awareness of water pollution. So it's a film, yes, but there is a huge activist impact-led element to it. And that's sort of our big project in development right now.
And it's a great way of getting, again, as you say, it's a great way of getting an important message across in a perhaps more palatable or acceptable form as well, isn't it? Through the film and theatre. That's fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
so if we want to know any more, where can we find out any more about you and the company? What's the best route?
So the best way to find out about Silicon Gothic is just Google Silicon Gothic, spelled Silicon Gothic, basically. SILICON space Gothic. And we've got a website. It should be the first that comes up because I don't think there are anything else called Silicon Gothic. We're not on Instagram, but we do have a website. And on Instagram, I'm Cathy Wippell. And you can find I post a lot about Silicon Gothic basically on there as well. Candid Broads are our co-producer. They've also got a good website you can find out about. And yeah, we are really looking to connect with people who are interested in the projects, basically. So if anyone wants to reach out, our email is on there, and that directly goes to me and Joe.
And of course, you've got Cabaret for the End of the World.
Yes, for that. That also has a website, www.montsellier, spelled MONTSELI. Oh, I need to write this down in front of me.
Okay. If they check Bread and Roses Theatre.
If they check Bread and Roses, this is a better way to do it. It should be in shows coming up, what's on. And you'll find Cabaret for the End of the World. And it runs from the 3rd to the 7th of June, 7 to 8 p.m.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time. That's all we've got time for. We've run out. We could go on forever, which is always a nice sign, isn't it? but thank you so much, Catherine, and we'll chat again at some point, I'm sure. So thank you for your time. Next time we're going to be talking about WB Yeats, would you believe, and the Bedford Poet Festival. But that's all we've got time for this time. Thank you for your input and for listening or watching us, of course, on bohemianbritain.com and on YouTube. I'm Nick Hennegan. This is Literary London, and we are on Resonance 104.4 FM.